Imagine waking up one day to find that your entire life, the decisions you've made, the relationships you've chosen, the dreams you've chased or abandoned, was not the product of your free will at all. Not destiny, not luck, not even reason, but fear. A silent, invisible author that has been writing your story from the shadows since the day you were born. It's in the jobs you never applied for because you thought you weren't ready. It's in the person you didn't confess your love to because rejection seemed unbearable. It's in the talents you buried because you feared they wouldn't be good enough for the world to see. Now here's the most unsettling part. If fear has been holding the pen all along, then every chapter you've lived, every success, every failure, every plateau, has been subtly edited to make sure you never step too far outside the lines. And you didn't even notice. Fear is clever like that. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it disguises itself as common sense or being realistic. Sometimes it hides behind logic so well that you congratulate yourself for being cautious, all the while living in a cage you can't even see. The tragedy is that the cage is so comfortable, so familiar that you begin to decorate it. You paint the walls with responsibility and stability and what's best for me. You convince yourself that the view from inside is all you'll ever need. But late at night, when the world is quiet and the mask slips, you hear it, the faint scratching sound of an unwritten life clawing at the edges of your mind. The life you could have lived if fear hadn't been your ghostwriter. What if every decision you've ever made has been more about avoiding pain than seeking truth? What if the goals you've set were chosen not because they lit you on fire, but because they felt safe enough to fail it quietly? What if the very identity you've built, the you think is real, is just a carefully constructed defense mechanism designed to protect you from the things you fear most? You tell yourself you're being smart. But maybe smart is just the name fear gives to submission. And here's the most dangerous thing about it. Fear doesn't just stop you from doing things. It changes the way you see reality. It edits your perception of what's possible. It rewrites the rules of the game so you'll never try to play it differently. Think about it. How many opportunities have you already walked past because your mind decided, without proof, that they were out of reach? How many people have you never met because fear convinced you they were too different, too intimidating, or not worth the risk? How many dreams have you quietly assassinated before they could even take their first breath? And yet, you still feel the weight of them. It's like standing in a room full of unopened doors, holding the key to every single one, and somehow convincing yourself it's better not to try them because the hallway beyond might be cold or dark or empty. Here's the paradox that should keep you up tonight. Fear promises to protect you from pain, but in doing so, it guarantees you'll never taste the fullness of life. It tells you, stay here and you'll be safe, while quietly stealing every moment that could have made your life worth living. And it's not just in the big decisions. Fear shapes the smallest choices too, what you say in a meeting, how you dress for an event, when you speak up, and when you swallow your words. It shapes your posture, your tone, the way you walk into a room. It even shapes the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. So here's the great question, the one that will haunt you until you answer it. If fear wasn't writing your life, who would you be? Strip away every choice made to avoid rejection, embarrassment, or failure. Imagine removing every decision driven by the need to be liked, accepted, or approved. Imagine erasing every moment where you held back because you didn't want to look foolish or weak or naive. What remains? Would you still be living in the same city? Would you still be in the same job? Would you still be surrounded by the same people? Would you still be the person you are now? Or would you be someone unrecognizable, wilder, freer, more alive than you've ever dared to imagine? The answer to that question could change everything. But before we can get there, we need to go deeper, into the roots of this invisible force, into the psychology and philosophy of fear itself. Because until you understand how fear works, you'll never know how to escape it. Fear is not just a feeling. It is an operating system. Most people imagine fear as a sudden jolt, a spike in the chest when you're about to speak in public, the rush of adrenaline when you hear bad news, the tremor in your hands before making a big leap. But in reality, fear is far more subtle, far more patient. It doesn't just arrive in moments of crisis. It lives in you. It shapes your thoughts before you even think them. It decides the roads you never take before you even see the signpost. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Fear thrives in the unconscious. It hides in the dark corners of your mind, whispering directions so softly you think they're your own thoughts. You follow them willingly, not realizing you're tracing the same safe circle over and over. From the moment you are born, you are handed two competing truths. The world is full of possibility. The world is full of danger. And slowly, through the lessons of parents, teachers, culture, and even your own early failures, you learn that the second truth feels heavier, stronger, louder. We don't begin life afraid. Watch a child before they've been taught how things work. They reach for everything. They ask why 1,000 times a day. They fall, cry, and try again without hesitation. But then the conditioning begins. Don't climb too high, you'll fall. Don't speak too loudly, you'll draw attention. Don't dream too big, you'll be disappointed. Little by little, the walls close in. You learn where it's safe to stand, what it's safe to want, who it's safe to be. You trade curiosity for caution. And because everyone around you is doing the same, you call it normal. But normal is just a shared prison. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer wrote that most people take the limits of their vision to be the limits of the world. That's the real power of fear. It convinces you that the edges of your comfort zone are the edges of reality. And here's the twist. Fear is not irrational. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you from pain. Evolution wired it into your nervous system. The brain's amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster buried deep inside, is a survival alarm. When it senses potential danger, physical, social, or even imagined, it floods your body with fight-or-flight chemistry. This was essential when your ancestors faced predators or rival tribes. But in the modern world, that same system fires off for things that won't kill you. Speaking your truth, changing careers, leaving a toxic relationship, starting something new. The body reacts as if you're standing in front of a tiger, even when the only threat is emotional. This is why fear can feel so convincing. It's not just in your mind, it's in your body. Your heart races. Your palms sweat. Your breathing quickens. The mind interprets these sensations as proof. If I feel this much anxiety, it must mean I'm in real danger. So you pull back. You don't make the call. You don't take the step. You don't risk the unknown. And every time you obey that impulse, fear grows stronger. Not just in the moment, but in the architecture of your brain. Neuroscience shows that avoiding fear reinforces the neural pathways associated with it, making them faster, more automatic. Fear literally becomes easier to feel and harder to break. Society doesn't help. In fact, it weaponizes fear. The media runs on it, because fear sells attention. Politicians exploit it, because fear unites tribes against perceived threats. Marketing thrives on it, convincing you you're incomplete without their product. From billboards to breaking news, the message is constant. You're not safe, you're not enough, you're not in control. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what happens when your why is not your own? When it's been replaced with 1,000 little fears telling you what not to do, where not to go, who not to become? Fear doesn't just block ambition, it rewrites identity. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What can I survive without risking too much?" You choose careers based on stability instead of passion. You choose partners who feel safe instead of those who ignite you. You choose dreams that are socially acceptable instead of the ones that terrify you into greatness. And because these choices rarely lead to total collapse, you tell yourself you're fine. But deep down, a different part of you, the part that remembers you were once unafraid, feels the quiet ache of betrayal. This is why Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, warned that the deepest suffering often comes not from pain itself, but from the absence of meaning. Fear steals meaning by replacing your genuine desires with counterfeit ones, then convincing you they're authentic. And if that wasn't enough, fear has a camouflage. It wears the mask of rationality. It tells you, it's not fear, it's practicality. It's not fear, it's planning ahead. It's not fear, it's just being responsible. The result? You never confront it directly. You think you're making wise, adult decisions, but you're actually negotiating with a prison guard. And every compromise, every small retreat, tightens the chains. If you've ever wondered why you feel restless even when life looks good on paper, this is why. The human soul was not built for survival alone. It was built for expansion, for risk, for the pursuit of something larger than safety. And yet here we are, an entire species haunted by the same quiet puppeteer. Some of us rebel in small bursts, chasing moments of freedom before retreating again. Others resign completely, convincing themselves they never wanted more in the first place. But make no mistake, fear has been telling your story. And unless you learn to wrestle the pen from its hands, it will keep writing until the final chapter. Which leads to a more urgent question than ever. If fear is this deeply wired into your psychology and so reinforced by the society you live in, is escape even possible? The answer is yes. But first, you have to see the cost of letting fear stay in control. And the cost is far greater than you think. Fear doesn't just stop you from living the life you want. It quietly builds the life you'll regret. The danger isn't only in what fear takes away, it's in what it replaces it with. Because every time you say no to something that matters, you are, by default, saying yes to something that doesn't. And over time, those small substitutions shape a reality you never consciously chose. It's a slow erosion, not an explosion. You start by avoiding discomfort in a meeting, keeping your idea to yourself because you don't want to look foolish. Harmless enough. But that pattern repeats. You begin to speak less in general, contribute less, become invisible in rooms where visibility is currency. You tell yourself it's just who I am, but in truth, it's who fear trained you to be. The same happens in relationships. You avoid hard conversations because you don't want conflict. So you let resentment grow quietly, hoping it will dissolve on its own. It doesn't. Instead, it hardens into distance. And before you realize it, you are living alongside people you no longer truly know. People who no longer truly know you. This is the invisible architecture of a fear-shaped life. It's not a dramatic collapse. It's the gentle settling of the soul into a smaller, quieter existence. And then comes the most dangerous phase, adaptation. Humans are masters of getting used to almost anything, even lives that are slowly suffocating us. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation, the tendency to accept whatever reality we're in as normal over time. In the context of fear, it means you stop feeling the full sting of what you've lost. You forget there were other paths. You accept the cage as home. Here's the cruel twist. Once the cage feels normal, you no longer resist it. You start defending it. You tell yourself people who take big risks are reckless. You label dreamers as unrealistic. You find comfort in the belief that you're more grounded than those who leap into the unknown. But deep down you know the truth. It's not that you've chosen a safer life, it's that you've chosen a smaller one. And the cost? It shows up everywhere. It shows up in your health. Chronic stress and suppressed ambition can manifest as anxiety, insomnia, or even physical illness. The body keeps the score, as trauma expert Bessel van der Kolk famously wrote. Fear-driven choices keep your nervous system on low-grade alert, wearing you down from the inside. It shows up in your identity. You become a version of yourself optimized for safety, not for truth. And every year you live that way, the gap between who you are and who you could be grows wider, until they feel like strangers to each other. It shows up in your legacy. Think about it. The stories people will tell about you one day will be based on the life you lived. Will those stories speak of courage and risk and fierce authenticity? Or will they quietly reflect a life that stayed within the lines? But the most devastating consequence of all is subtle, and it creeps in slowly. You lose the ability to imagine yourself without fear. It's not just that you won't take certain risks, you won't even think of them anymore. The mind narrows its field of vision, cutting out anything that might require courage. Over time, you forget the vastness of what's possible. That's when fear's victory is complete. Not when it stops you from acting, but when it stops you from dreaming. And society rewards this obedience. You'll be praised for being steady, reliable, realistic. No one will blame you for living inside the boundaries because they're living there too. It becomes a collective illusion. Everyone pretending the cage is freedom because acknowledging otherwise would shatter the whole structure. There's another layer too, one most people never see until it's too late. Fear doesn't just shape your life. It shapes the lives of those around you. Children watch their parents choose safety over passion and internalize that as the way life works. Partners adjust to your smaller self and stop inviting you into bigger possibilities. Friends stop offering new adventures because they know you'll say no. Your fear becomes contagious. It spreads silently through your relationships, your workplace, your community, until it feels like just the way things are. And then one day, maybe years from now, you'll wake up and realize you've been living in a story you didn't write. You'll look back and see the forked roads where fear chose for you. The moments when you could have stepped forward but didn't. The chances you never took because the what-ifs were louder than the why-nots. Regret is the ghost of the life you didn't live. And fear is the thing that summons it. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre believed that human beings are condemned to be free, that we cannot escape the responsibility of choosing. But fear offers the perfect illusion, the chance to hand over that responsibility and let something else choose for us. It feels easier in the moment, but it costs everything in the long run. And here's the part that should scare you most. You might not even realize it's happening until it's too late to undo it. That's why awareness is not enough. You can't just know fear is shaping your life. You have to actively break its influence. Because the truth is, fear won't stop writing your story unless you physically take the pen away. But how? How do you override a force that's hardwired into your biology, reinforced by your culture, and disguised as logic? The answer isn't to eliminate fear. That's impossible, and even dangerous. The answer is something far more radical. You have to learn to live in open rebellion against it. Rebellion against fear does not begin with bravery. It begins with defiance. You don't wake up one morning magically fearless. You wake up still trembling, still uncertain, and you act anyway. That's the rebellion. Not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let it sit in the driver's seat. Fear will tell you, you're not ready. Rebellion answers, I may never be ready, but I'm going. Fear whispers, what if you fail? Rebellion responds, then I fail loud enough for the walls to hear me. It's a mindset shift so radical that it feels almost unnatural, because it is unnatural at least compared to the patterns you've lived by. But here's the truth, everything in your body and mind has been trained to seek safety. That training has been reinforced over decades. Breaking it will feel like breaking yourself. And in a way it is. It's breaking the smaller self, the one fear built for you so the larger self can finally breathe. You cannot escape a prison you cannot see. Your first act of rebellion is to expose the invisible walls. Start noticing every time fear disguises itself as logic. Question the reasons you give for not doing something. Are they truly grounded in reality, or are they just fear in a mask? Ask yourself, if I wasn't afraid of looking foolish, failing, or being judged, would I make the same choice? This question cuts deep. It will reveal just how often fear is quietly steering you. And the moment you see it, the illusion weakens. One of fear's greatest tricks is convincing you that you must wait until you're ready. That is a lie. Readiness is a mirage. You chase it and it stays just far enough away that you never arrive. The way to break this cycle is to act before fear has time to build its case. Start small. Speak up once in a meeting. Send the message you've been avoiding. Apply for the opportunity that scares you even if you think you won't get it. Every small act against fear rewires your brain. It proves to your nervous system that you can survive discomfort. Over time, the threshold for what you can handle expands. Most people use fear as a stop sign. Rebels use it as a map. When something scares you, not because it's physically dangerous but because it threatens your comfort zone, that's a sign you're near something important. The dreams that matter most often live just beyond the edges of fear. Instead of avoiding that territory, walk toward it. Think about it. The same adrenaline that fuels terror also fuels excitement. Your body's signals are almost identical. The only difference is the story you tell yourself about what those signals mean. Change the story and fear becomes fuel. You cannot sustain rebellion with willpower alone. Eventually, the old identity, the one fear molded, will try to pull you back. That's why you must build a self-image rooted in courage. Start identifying yourself not as someone who is fearless, but as someone who acts in spite of fear. This subtle shift changes everything. Every time you make a choice that defies fear, you're reinforcing this new identity. Say it to yourself until it becomes truth. I am the kind of person who does hard things. Fear thrives in isolation. Alone, your doubts echo louder. But when you're around people who live boldly, their courage rubs off on you. History is filled with rebellions that began in small groups, people who saw in each other a shared defiance. Find your tribe. Seek out the ones who take risks, who dream loudly, who make you feel braver just by being in the same room. The more you normalize boldness, the more alien fear will feel. Breaking free from fear is not without loss. You will lose certain relationships, people who are invested in the smaller version of you. You will lose the illusion of safety. You will lose the comfort of knowing exactly what your future holds. But in return, you will gain something worth infinitely more: the ability to live a life that is yours. And here's the paradox: you'll still feel fear, but it will no longer feel like a master. It will feel like a shadow you've learned to dance with. Think of Galileo, who challenged the church's view of the universe despite the threat of imprisonment. His rebellion against fear wasn't the absence of danger. It was the choice to speak truth anyway. Or Rosa Parks, whose refusal to give up her seat was a small, single act, but one that defied centuries of systemic intimidation. Or the countless artists, thinkers, and leaders who stepped into ridicule, rejection, and uncertainty because the alternative, silence, was unacceptable. None of them waited until they stopped feeling afraid. They acted while their hands shook. And that's why their names outlived their fears. There will come a moment, perhaps sooner than you think, when you stand at the edge of a decision that feels impossible. Fear will give you every reason to retreat. And in that moment, rebellion will be a whisper in your mind. What if this is the page where you take back the pen? That's all rebellion really is: taking back authorship. Choosing the next line in your story not because it's safe, but because it's true. The irony is that once you've lived this way for a while, you'll look back and realize the cost of rebellion was far less than the cost of obedience. Because in the end, fear may protect your life, but only rebellion can give it meaning. And when you understand that, you're ready for the final step. Because beyond rebellion lies something even deeper. Something that changes not just your actions, but your entire understanding of reality. Here is the truth fear never wants you to see. Fear isn't the enemy. It's the mirror. It's not here to stop you. It's here to show you exactly where you must go if you want to live fully. This is the final paradox. For most of your life, you've been trying to get rid of fear, shrink it, silence it, outrun it. But what if fear has been trying to guide you toward the parts of yourself you've abandoned? What if every fear you've ever had was a map, pointing to the exact doors you needed to open? We resist fear because we mistake it for danger. But most fear is not danger, it's discomfort. And discomfort is the forge in which the truest version of you is made. Think about it. Every great moment of transformation in history, in your own life, in the lives of leaders, in the course of humanity, came not from comfort but from walking willingly into the unknown. The final, most powerful realization is this: fear will never disappear. And it's not supposed to. Your job is not to kill it. Your job is to change your relationship with it, to see it not as a wall but as a threshold. Viktor Frankl, in The Horror of a Concentration Camp, realized that even when everything is taken from you, one freedom remains: the freedom to choose your response. Fear gives you that same choice every single day. It hands you the script you've been following unconsciously, and it asks, will you keep reading this or will you write something new? Most people don't even realize they have a choice. They see fear's script as the only one available. But the truth is, the moment you become conscious of it, you can put it down. And when you do, something strange happens. Fear doesn't vanish, but it changes. It becomes less like a jailer and more like a signal flare, illuminating the exact path where your growth lives. Up until now, you've probably been making choices to avoid pain. That's fear's natural pull, to steer you away from discomfort, even if that discomfort is the only way to the life you want. But when you see fear as a compass, you stop asking, how can I avoid? And start asking, where is this trying to take me? This is what alignment feels like. Not the absence of fear, but the harmony between fear and your deeper purpose. When you realize this, something else happens. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is behind in life. That's another trick fear plays, convincing you you're too late, too old, too far gone. But that timeline? It's an invention. Fear uses it to keep you from starting. The reality is, the only moment you ever have is now. And fear is only ever present now. Which means courage is only ever possible now. And here's the liberating part. You don't have to rewrite your entire life at once. You only have to make the next decision in alignment with truth instead of fear. Do that enough times and the entire arc of your story bends toward freedom. Even on your last day, fear will still be there. But if you've lived this truth, it will no longer feel like an adversary. It will feel like a companion, one that kept you honest, one that showed you the exact terrain where your soul was meant to grow. And that's the ultimate liberation, not to escape fear, but to walk with it so deeply and so consistently that it becomes a familiar wind at your back, not a storm blocking your path. Forget the idea that courage is a single dramatic act. True courage is far quieter. It's the accumulation of small, defiant choices made in the presence of fear. It's making the call. It's taking the leap. It's telling the truth when your voice shakes. It's showing up over and over for the life you know is yours, even when the easier choice would be to stay hidden. Courage is the daily practice of refusing to let fear be the author. Picture this. Years from now, you're standing at the edge of something new. Maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's a move, maybe it's the first page of something you've wanted to write for decades. Fear will be there, familiar, steady, whispering all the reasons to stay where you are. But this time you'll smile. Not because you're fearless, but because you recognize the voice. You'll take a breath, put your hand on the door and step through, not in spite of the fear, but because of it. And in that moment you'll know. Fear didn't steal your life. It shaped it, refined it, sharpened it, and then it handed you the pen. Now here's the final question, the one only you can answer. From this moment forward, will you live the rest of your life by fear's script? Or will you take the pen and write the story yourself? Because no one can do it for you. No mentor, no book, no speech, not even these words, can replace the one thing that changes everything. Action. Not tomorrow. Not when you're ready. No. You already know where fear has been steering you. You felt its hands on the wheel. The rebellion starts the moment you decide to grab it back. And maybe, just maybe, that moment is this one. If you've heard the scratching sound of an unwritten life clawing at the edges of your mind, it's because there's still time. Time to break the pattern. Time to write something different. But there's no guarantee how long that time will last. Fear will always offer you tomorrow. Freedom only lives in today. So take the pen. Write the next line. And for the first time in your life, make it yours.